One of the first things I do in preparing my people for a pilgrimage is directing them to a particular mental focus or mind frame. In Tibet, the Tibetans have the idea that your motivation or your attitude, your inner mental posture is instrumental to your experience. So before going even the first step of pilgrimage, I work fairly hard at trying to get the people's inner focus, inner posture well set and well established. Once in Tibet, we're always, of course, provided with an official guide. The first thing I do with him or her is tell them, don't talk too much. There is a tendency with the official pilgrimage guides that they just walk you into a chapel, list the names of whatever images are there, walk you into another one, list another 100 names. For pilgrimage, one does want to learn a little bit about each place and about the main images in each place, but one doesn't want to do it purely in an intellectual or conceptual way, as though somehow a longer shopping list is going to give someone a deeper experience. So in this particular pilgrimage, in the beginning with our guide, I told him the secret to our success is giving everyone enough space that they can do their personal exploration, both of the physical site as well as their inner mental, emotional response to it, while at the same time keeping people cohesive enough to have the sense of group pilgrimage. I think life is a very mysterious or multifaceted process. Where we come from, where we're going. Ordinary people don't have much of a sense of that. In fact, in Buddhism we say only a fully enlightened master sees the full depth and range of the unfolding of things. As for myself, as a young man, I grew up in French Canada, and for us, our real educational drive was towards the sciences, medicine, engineering, those kinds of fields, business. But as a young man, I happened upon Asian literature. I started reading things from the Upanishads to the great Sufi classics, the Tao Te Ching. But when I read the great Tibetan classics translated by Evans Wentz and Lama Kazi Dawasanda, I knew I had found my home from a spiritual point of view. And from then on, whatever I could find out about Tibet, whatever I could learn about Tibet, I made every effort to do so. Some years later, I heard that the Tibetans had opened an institute for Western people in India in one of the refugee communities. And so I made my way there thinking to study for 3 years. But after 3 years I didn't know much at all, so it became another 3. Still didn't know much, so it became another 3. Still didn't know much, so it became another 3. And in the end I ended up spending 12 years in studying with the Tibetan masters in India. At the end of that time I didn't really know everything, but anyway, by that time I had 5 or 6 books published, and my publishers were pressing me to do some lecture touring. Otherwise I'd still be sitting in the mountains of Himalayas in India studying and meditating. I do try to go back, over the next decade I tried to go back for 6 months out of every year to continue my training. And from the early 90s, with the opening of Tibet, started to go to Tibet every year and developed a real love for pilgrimage, visiting the places of pilgrimage, the power places where great masters of the past walked and breathed, where they meditated and where they achieved enlightenment. And for me, it's all personal. I pick my groups very carefully. I turn down almost as many people as I allow on the pilgrimages. And leading pilgrimages is as much a part of the process as doing pilgrimage. I suppose when I've done them by myself, there is a freedom to meditate more in various places. But in ancient times, the Buddhist masters always went on pilgrimage with rather large entourages. So although I don't rank myself with them in the sense of status, nonetheless I very much enjoy emulating that style. For instance, the pilgrimage we're on now to the sacred places of the second Dalai Lama. If we read his biography, we notice that every time he went on pilgrimage, it was always with 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 people. He was a pilgrimage master, and certainly he would have had more private time if he would have gone by himself with just one or two friends or attendants. But there's a certain inspiration, if you will, in being part of a larger group, that it's almost as though synergistically the sum of the energies is much less than the totality of what you get from 10 or 15 or 20 people all together in one place, in one sacred place, meditating together, walking, doing the kora, the walk-arounds together, and just in general, the exploring those recesses of the mind that arise from such power, such amazing, magical energy places. I mean, Khenpo is a human being, like any other human being. Of course, being a monk is a blessing. He's also a very great spiritual person, spiritual master. We share many of the same gurus, so for me, that was an unexpected asset to the Torah. For me, it was a sort of a little bit like having a spiritual assistant on the Torah. It certainly made my job a lot easier. He was very willing always to help lead meditation sessions, help solve people's personal problems if they arose, with his wisdom and his many other talents. For me, I guess as much as anything, just the joy of seeing him explode with delight in every place we went was the great reward of bringing him, because all Buddhists of Central Asia hope to go to the places we visited. And very often, financial considerations, political considerations, other obstacles of that nature arise, and they don't get to go. In his case, as he said, for 20 years he's been just praying and wishing and hoping against hope to undertake such a pilgrimage. So for me to be able to help facilitate that was very, very wonderful. And I think every single person on the tour benefited immensely from seeing the traditional response to the power places. To having someone there who really embodied the ancient tradition of pilgrimage. I myself, from my side, always try to get people focused into the traditional mode: devotion, respect, expectation. But to have a well-trained monk with us, certainly I think every single person benefited immensely. I think by expectation there I mean a kind of a purity of excitation combined with spiritual enthusiasm and a profound sense of awe. Not that people should think this will happen or that will happen. I think those kind of conceptualized expectations are more of an obstacle than a benefit, but just a profound sense of spiritual awe at the pure magic of the enlightenment energy as embodied in the power places. As a leader of a group, naturally, I always hope that at least half the group will achieve deeper levels of spiritual understanding through the pilgrimage. I think the challenges that arise from a combination of hardship, altitude, traveling through unknown lands associated with enlightenment, all of these factors come together in such a way as to encourage people to unfold with a deeper understanding of themselves, the world in which we live, and in general their purpose in being, the nature and function of their life. And I think generally over half do achieve that through pilgrimage. Of course, pilgrimage has many other benefits. There's great healing comes from it, from everything from deathly diseases to inner depression and sadness to a sense of vagueness and lostness, which adversely affects so many modern peoples. These and many, many other maladjustments, if you will, are very often healed through pilgrimage. Every place had its own great inspiration for me personally. The first step into the Jokang on every pilgrimage is like a rebirth. Everything that has happened in this life falls away, and life is born anew with total freedom and joy, light and laughter. And certainly the Jokang for me is always my favorite place. It doesn't matter how many times I go or how many other exotic places. The Rinpoche, an evening in the Rinpoche with the monks talking about their personal lives and their personal wishes and aspirations. Again, very, very wonderful heart experience. It was especially wonderful watching Khenpo Tashi in these places that he'd always dreamed of visiting, and particularly when we went to Samye and Mindruling, how every chapel carried a whole chapter of his life in it, educationally, spiritually. But of course the highlight and the grand finale in terms of the outgoing aspect of the pilgrimage, the Oracle Lake. I think it certainly ranks as one of the 5 or 6 great wonders on this planet. Myself, as an engineering student in my youth, I could only marvel at the great mystical force that caused that lake to arise in such dramatic fashion. Those mountains as a ring around the lake, and then the ridge in front, which 17,600 feet, and one sits perched on a ridge no more than 2 or 3 feet wide, dropping on both sides hundreds of feet. Just the natural wonder of it, combined with this idea from Padmasambhava in the mid-8th century, and then this idea that merely being there would guarantee a life revelation. And sitting there with other peoples who had no direct knowledge of that sacred phenomena, and watching one by one as peoples entered that state of revelation. That particular cave with Tibetans is considered one of his half-dozen most important meditation caves, because it's the first one he lived in for any length of time after leaving his guru Marpa. He lived with Marpa for many years, receiving his training, and it came the point that Marpa said, "I've taught you everything I can teach, and now is the time for you to retreat by yourself into the mountains and meditate, and meditate some more." Milarepa therefore left Lotak and Marpa of the southern hills and wandered and came upon that cave. And he and my personal favorite of his disciples, Rinpoche, meditated there for 3 years. Milarepa's cave is fabulous. Myself, of course, if I were to do a retreat there, I think I would choose Rinpoche's cave. It's smaller, more compact, and has a great meditative energy about it. Milarepa's, of course, is very fabulous as well. And for every member of the group, I think everyone knew of Milarepa well. Many people had read his biography. Many had read some, if not all, of his collection of mystical songs and stories. So it was very auspicious for us to be able to stay there for that day. We had hoped to sleep in the cave, or for some members to sleep in the cave, but unfortunately, even though the monks were open to the idea, the local regulations didn't permit it, and perhaps for good reason, because if one allows travelers to stay in places of that nature, there may be some security concerns from the point of view of maintaining the sanctity of the place, as well as, of course, the preciousness of the images that are in them. But nonetheless, we were able to meditate there twice, and the monks were very kind in sitting with us, chanting with us, and so forth. And I think certainly it was a great upliftment for many, many of our group members. Pilgrimage to the power places is indeed one of the most fortunate undertakings of the human species. All spiritual traditions of the world have encouraged it and seen its benefits since time immemorial. Tibet has the greatest number of pilgrimage places, perhaps because it was the most intensely spiritual in terms of pure statistics of the population. Throughout their lives, I think, of the 100 most beneficial things those peoples will do through their entire lives, I think that this pilgrimage is certainly one of those 100, and probably one of the top 10 of those 100. But to extract the full value, I think it is important to contemplate, meditate, reflect, and digest. A major problem we have in the West is we have a ton of input data, but only an ounce of digestive appreciation. We don't need more information and more data. We need to fully digest, access, and integrate the data, the knowledge, the information we get. In terms of the enlightened places, the energies from each of those has the capacity to bring people's great inner joy, happiness, and transformation. Whether or not any individual will get that will depend really on their ability to later bring it to the fore of their consciousness and, as the Tibetans say, trepa, blend it into the continuum of their experience.